Hi there, and welcome to the podcast studio. My name's Chris Dabbs, and basically I'm going to try over the next series of podcasts to explain to you exactly what a podcast is, how we at the podcast studio can help you create podcasts and also help you to distribute them out into the internet world so that your customers, your fans, and everybody else who wants to listen to anything you say can find you and can listen to you forever and ever and ever and ever. So welcome to our third podcast, and this time we're going to be talking about how to start your own podcast, what you've got to think about, the kit you've got to get, how you actually put together a podcast, and what you need to do. So stay tuned. So let's start off with the obvious. For those of you who aren't exactly sure, podcasts are like a radio show in some ways. Technically, a podcast is just a digital recording. However, a podcast's benefit to you as a podcast publisher could be much more than just that. If you're a business owner, marketer, or indeed anyone who needs to enhance their business or organization's reach, then creating and recording your very own podcast is an expansion of the content on your website. From an organization's point of view, podcasts are one of the most effective ways to explain your core messages to your core audience. Audience research shows that in the UK alone, 34 million hours of podcasts are listened to through headphones every single week. Podcasts are here to stay, and your potential podcast audience is probably already used to listening to podcasts in their cars, on public transport, at home, or even when walking the dog. If you had your own podcast, your reach would increase dramatically for very little cost. For example, if you are a professional services firm, such as an accountant, a podcast could allow you to interact with your existing clients. A monthly podcast detailing any changes to accounting rules could prove beneficial to your clients who don't have the time to read your monthly catch-up email. Producing your own podcast and giving your clients the opportunity to listen and digest what you have to say through your podcast at a time that suits them is invaluable and a great client service. Now, take that message about client contact through podcasts and apply it to any type of business or organization. If you're a charity, your podcast could be to your supporters, detailing what fundraising events are coming up. If you're a sports club, your weekly podcast could cover upcoming fixtures and the previous week's results. If you're a restaurant, discuss your new menu or promotions in your podcast. Hotels can also promote their special deals through podcasts. Car dealers can now have the chance to explain their newest deals in their podcasts. If you're in the fashion industry, having your own podcasts will allow you to discuss trends. Personal trainers, chiropodists, chiropractors, and counselors could all benefit from communicating with their clients via podcasts. If you're into web design or SEO marketing, you know that content is important, and podcasts can help you gain a following and increase your SEO rankings. PR firms can help their clients increase their reach by suggesting the use of podcasts. Politicians can also benefit from podcasts. The UK's current Prime Minister Boris Johnson has just started to use a video podcast to communicate with the people of the UK. You can find his podcast under People's Question Time. As we have seen, podcasting makes your message more personal and concrete to your audience and allows you to communicate more effectively than traditional methods such as emails and magazines. By now, you're probably wondering how to go about starting your own podcast. To start with, you could just use your smartphone and earbuds to record a simple podcast. You could take it further and shoot a video podcast at the same time. Then upload it to Facebook, YouTube, or whatever platform you use. This simple approach may work for some types of podcasts. But one of the key points of podcasts is sound quality. With 34 million hours of podcasts being listened to through headphones in the UK alone each week, scratchy audio quality just won't be tolerated by your podcast listeners. They will soon turn away from your podcast and assume it's unprofessional and amateurish. So using good quality equipment is important. At least invest in a decent USB microphone, which will allow you to record a good quality audio podcast into your computer. Something like the Blue Yeti or the SE Electronics X1 USB may be a good starting point for a microphone for your podcast. You will then need some audio editing software to tidy things up and edit out the mistakes in your podcast. Fortunately, there are options here as well. You can pay for software such as Adobe Audition if you want a full professional digital audio workstation. Or you could go the free route with a podcast editing friendly digital audio workstation such as Audacity, GarageBand, or even Pro Tools first for a good intro into professional DAWs. Much like we do with this podcast, you can also add music to your podcast, as long as it's royalty-free and free for you to use legally. Next, spend some time to record a few practice podcast shows before releasing your podcast to your audience. This will help you to feel comfortable in front of the microphone and with the technology required to create a podcast. The next step, apart from getting podcast content together on a regular basis, is to invite guests who are subject matter experts of their companies and their market to be interviewed on your podcast. You might think that finding podcast guests would be difficult, but in my experience, that's not the case. It's worth bearing in mind that many people are more than happy to be interviewed on podcasts. Because when you interview somebody for your podcast, they're getting publicity for their company. So it's a win-win situation for all involved. I hope this article and podcast have been helpful and encourage you to look at starting your own podcast. However, if all this talk of DAWs, digital audio workstations, USBs and guests is starting to put you off recording your own podcasts, don't worry. Remember that your message could be getting across to some of those 34 million hours that are listened to every week. But if it all seems too much and you would prefer some professional help, get in touch with us at the Podcast Studio. We offer all types of companies or organizations a full-service podcasting consultation service. If you're in the UK, we can record your podcast for you from the comfort of your own office. Or we can record remotely from anywhere in the world. You choose. If you want to know more, contact us via email. podcasthelp@thepodcaststudio.co.uk or by phone on UK 01424 221 483. I've been Chris Dabbs, and this is the Podcast Studio. Thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast, and catch you next time.